The actual fires might have been put out in Ballymena, North Antrim, but the social, political fires are still very much ablaze. It has been a grim few weeks in Northern Ireland. On the 7th of June, a teenage girl was reported to have been the victim of a serious sexual assault. 2 days later, 2 14-year-old Romanian Roma boys were taken in for police questioning and eventually charged. Soon after that, around 2,500 people took to the streets of Ballymena for an initially peaceful protest, but the mood soon curdled into something far nastier.
This became the scene of an ugly and violent night.
Over the course of several days and nights, Ballymena was gripped by violent unrest.
Fireworks, masonry, petrol bombs, all hurled at police lines.
Groups of masked men began rioting.
No foreigners!
At first, houses believed to be where the accused lived were targeted, but then the violence spread. A Filipino man's house was attacked, and this prompted other migrants to plaster their front doors with Union flags and signs indicating that Filipinos lived there, all in the hope of warding off petrol bombs. Politicians, officials, and many in the media were quick to condemn what happened as pure racism. That's how Northern Ireland's First Minister Michelle O'Neill described it.
It's pure racism, folks. There's no other way to dress it up.
Writing in The Guardian, lawyer and political commentator Sarah Cretan agreed. The riots in Ballymena are about racism and nothing more. Now, much of what happened was undoubtedly racist, and it needs to be called out as such. Those who turned to violence and menaced innocent migrants are contemptible and should face the full force of the law. But we still need to understand why this happened. We need to address the social, economic and cultural climate that has fanned the flames of this nihilism. And we need to address the broader concerns about immigration within these communities. Indeed, there are many people in places like Ballymena who did not and would never riot, who have no problem with migrants themselves, but who remain unsettled by how their town is changing and the new divisions this change has brought. Many on the right have pointed to the high levels of immigration in Ballymena. North Antrim MP Jim Allister of the traditional Unionist Voice Party told the BBC's Newsline show in May that there was an oversubscription of migrants who had been placed there. He said that the last time he went out canvassing in Ballymena, out of about 50 houses, he only encountered 5 local, if I can call them that, residents of Ballymena.
You throw open your borders and allow them to come and you've no idea who's coming. Okay. That is the source of the problem.
The left, meanwhile, have largely pointed to a lack of resources, from ever-lengthening queues for the GP to the chronic housing shortage. In doing so, the left also accepts that levels of migration have played a role in the unrest. It would be churlish to deny that higher numbers have put pressure on the system, writes Cretan. Yet, all too often, left-leaning voices refuse to talk any further about immigration and what it has meant in towns like this.
Why is this happening? The first thing I'd say is neoliberalism.
Concerns over the increasing number of Roma people have been bubbling away in Ballymena for several years. A 2018 BBC News article explored local residents' views about the number of Roma people moving to the town. Most locals interviewed said they were worried about jobs, especially after the closure of the Michelin tyre factory, which affected 860 workers. Some were put out that migrants had been successful in getting work at Wrightbus, the company famous for producing Boris Johnson's double-decker buses during his time as London Mayor. Furthermore, Northern Ireland's political class, as it is on the British mainland, has given little to no thought to integrating the ever-rising numbers of newcomers. Add to that the pressure immigration exerts on already stretched resources, and you have a recipe for social conflict. Too often, mainstream politicians have refused to listen to the concerns of residents. Disastrously, this has meant that those on the extreme right appear to be the only ones willing to talk to ordinary people about what is going on. When locals held meetings in Ballymena to discuss these issues, they were shunned by many local politicians, but attended generously by members of far-right groups such as Britain First. There's more to the unrest in Ballymena than immigration, of course. The town is a loyalist stronghold with a history of sectarian violence against Catholics. Many suspect that its paramilitary legacy might at least explain some of the carnage over the course of the past month. Several interviews with neighbours in and around the riots have reported people cheering on the wee bonfires like it was the old days. Working-class Protestants in Ballymena are also at the bottom of the identitarian pile. They feel attacked by Irish Republican Party Sinn Féin's language policies and shunned by the Westminster elite, which appears embarrassed by what it sees as Union flag-waving throwback. A siege mentality pervades in communities like these. Reports from the riots have often quoted young men spoiling for a street battle with police officers who they had heard were being sent from the mainland. They could be heard in these interviews making derogatory comments about the British government. All the while, they were hurling bricks in the name of the union. But the unique history of this place aside, there is also a common thread linking the disorder and destruction in Ballymena to what we have seen in other Irish and British towns in recent years. Take Knowsley in Merseyside. It went up in flames in February 2023 in strikingly similar circumstances. After allegations that a 25-year-old asylum seeker had propositioned a 15-year-old girl, a protest, and then a riot, erupted outside of an asylum hotel. In November later that year, trams and cars were set on fire in Dublin after an Algerian national stabbed a woman and 3 kids outside a school.
I really would ask people to try and avoid connecting crime with migration. It's not right.
Then there was that Southport massacre last summer. Riots raged across England and Northern Ireland for days, targeting asylum hotels, mosques and migrant areas, fueled by bogus online speculation that the killer was a Muslim asylum seeker. Time and again, this violence has illuminated deeply troubled communities in which old industries have disappeared, an influx of cheap labour is propping up what businesses remain, and the local hotel or leisure centre has been turned into asylum accommodation, the state taking advantage of the lower local rates. None of this justifies the violent racism we have seen burst out onto our streets. But unless we want to see the same scenes playing out again and again, we need to address the chronic social problems that are fueling this division and violence. Otherwise, we cannot be surprised when the next impoverished town goes up in flames.